Good morning. Today is the 13th day. 13th? No, 12th. 12th day of Kislev. The 13th of December, I think. Okay. Hopefully. Anyway, we're in the middle of chapter 1 of the prohibition of eating the sciatic nerve, Gida Nashe, Daf Yud Gimel, Amud Aleph, and it's about 10 lines from the top, V'ashlishit, V'agimel. והשלישית הוא בחינת נצח ענף החסד, והוא עניין ההשפעה הבאה בבחינת ניצוח בלבד, גם שאין החסד הזה בחפצה חשיקה פנימית, מחמת איזה מונע וטענה מעכבת. So, we're talking about how these three aspects, Rosh Toch Sof, the head, the middle, and the end, they are also reflected in Hashem, because we learn from ourselves, Im Sefirah Chazeh Eloka. So he says the third aspect, the Nehi, the end, so it is the victory, the netzach, which is a branch of Chesed, and this refers to the divine flow that occurs purely as an act of determination. Even when the kindness does not arise from an internal desire or passion due to some hindrance or argument that obstructs it. So there's some reason not to accept to do kindness, and Hashem doesn't want to do it, because we said before that the reason might be that Shlishit. והשלישית, הדף עצמו מתחיל פגם שלא ישלימו. So we said that some kind of blemish that the people don't follow Hashem's law, or there's some other reason, and still, even though the mind says not to give kindness, the third aspect, the Nehi, Netzach Od Yesod, they force it. It's like determination. And so, the same thing is very interesting. He doesn't note it here, but connecting it to the Parsha, obviously it's connected to the Parsha. We'll see now two connections, two very interesting connections. So you see that he has it in his mind, is that the whole Parsha begins with Esav's netzach. It's not by mistake that his archangel or his messenger hurts Yaakov in his netzach, in his right thigh. It's not by mistake. Why? Because you see that Esav is acting the same way. Because there's no reason anymore for him to be angry at Yaakov. Because Yaakov didn't get the blessings. He says that to him. That's part of what he sends the messengers to tell him. Look, I was not blessed in the way that Isaac blessed me. I didn't get those blessings at all. What I received is hard work. It's not blessings. And more importantly, that I'm coming to you with brotherly love, and I want et achicha, but he's not acting like your brother. He's acting like Esav, and he sends out and he comes out with his men. And he's acting also out of netzach. He's also acting out of determination. Esav is not acting neither with his mind or with his heart. It's just that sometimes the hatred is so strong that it's stuck in the lower parts of the body. It's stuck in the lower parts of the sefirah. Right? Yeah, it's just inertia. We would call it just inertia. You're functioning out of inertia. So his inertia with Yaakov is that he wants to kill him. He hates him. But you see that it's not, his heart isn't there and his mind isn't there. Because you see the way that he acts when they eventually meet. So the angel is really a reflection of how Esav himself is. Then somebody would ask, so does the angel do anything? Who's in charge? Is it the angel or the person? Which one is leading the show? Who's orchestrating everything? So it says, this is a very clear indication. It's like what the Maggid says, Hashem tzilcha al yad yaminecha. That Hashem, the supernal worlds, are just a shadow of what you do. Meaning, what you do is what they do. They learn from you. So here, Esav's angel is learning from him. Now the choice of words that he uses here, listen to these words. Right away when you hear them, so a person who's been davening his whole life, he hears them in a certain way. But if you read the Parsha carefully, you hear them in a different way. So he says here, despite this, the attribute of netzach, an extension of chesed, ensures the continuation of the flow of kindness overcoming any opposition. But the words that he used is that even when the kindness does not arise from an internal desire or passion, chafetza v'chashika pnimit. Who used these words, chafetza and chashika, in our parsha? Shechem ben Chamo. It's unbelievable. These words that we usually we attribute to God's relationship with us, that He wants us, He loves us, b'chashika v'chafetza, that's the words that the Torah uses to describe how Shechem ben Chamor felt for Dinah. It's a very interesting thing that here you have this terrible rape, but it comes out, but the Torah, it's not some account given to the officers and the police. The Torah witnesses, it says that he really felt for her. Chashika v'chafetza en ahava, even he uses love there. And he tries to convince them, and that's what the whole thing is about. He says, I can change. I started out off bad, but I'm not going to stay. I'm not really like that. They say, okay, the sign is going to be that you circumcise yourself. And that's a very big price to pay if you really want to be with this woman. So in the end, Yaakov and most of the other sons, they agree that this is a good sign. That if he's really willing to change, then I want to tell you something about this. This is going to be very controversial. It's going to go on YouTube and everybody's going to get angry at me. But I'll tell you a story, a real story. There was a girl that came to us, not to me personally, to one of the guys who counsels. And she was raped by an Arab, and this was like a year ago, 2 years ago, something like that. And she got I don't know what his fate was in the end, but she got counseling, and she seemed to be over it. She seemed to be over it. No, she didn't have a baby. She was just raped. Okay. But she comes a couple of years later, and she says, I can't see myself marrying a Jewish man.
She felt moved.
That's her symptom.
Okay.
She's coming with this thing. She can't see herself marrying a Jewish man. She's a frum girl.
Yeah.
A frum girl, like from one of the settlements.
Yeah.
And she can't see herself. So what do you do with this? So he sat with her for a little bit of time, and he thought a lot. And what they found out was that she didn't believe that anybody could want her as much, meaning that because she was molested, she was raped, in the back of her mind, this thought became that that's the only level of passion that she wants. That she wants someone to want her so much that he's willing to even sit in jail for it. And it's like that's what and then it got in her mind that this can only be an Arab. Like it can't be a Jew. A Jew would never sit in jail for me. A Jew would never do this. So when this was unraveled, it freed her from it. I mean, this was a classic psychoanalytic case where if you understand the root of the issue, it usually does resolve itself. Once she understood consciously that that's what she was harboring, that nobody would want her as much as an Arab, then it freed her from it. So this is not taken into account usually, because today the rape word is a trigger word. You can't discuss it. You can't discuss it. It's so terrible that it's the end of the world, and everybody compares it to murder because there's a pasuk in Deuteronomy about it and all this. But if you want to understand the psychology is that this is a tremendous act of passion, and it shows. And these are the words that the Torah uses. It's crazy words when you hear it. He says, I want her. Again, that's what we're saying. That even though his mind says, this is crazy, what am I doing? I'm killing myself and her. but he can't. He can't. So it's like that. It's this inertia that he's come to. Even though his heart feels something, for sure, his heart feels. Here the Torah says his heart really felt, but in the end, here he says, even if this passion and this love is not being expressed, because if you really were passionate and loving, then you would be able to respect her. But he says sometimes it's already gone down the path of determination, of netzach, and he can't stop himself. It's like this. But here the Torah says, in Shechem ben Chamor's case, it started from chashika v'chafitza. It's a crazy thing. You read the psukim, it's like unbelievable. Again, this is one of these issues you can't bring up at the Shabbos table anymore. They used to be able to talk about this 50 years ago. Now you can't talk about it anymore because it's just a trigger.
Is this why Dinah then wanted to stay with him in a way? I mean,
yeah, she was willing.
I didn't hear that.
He asked whether Dinah was willing to be with him, and from the pshat of the psukim, it seems that way.
Afterwards,
yeah,
yes.
She was willing to live with
him. The way you're saying the brothers would have agreed to it.
Most of them agreed to it. Shimon and Levi didn't.
Yeah, right.
Shimon and Levi said it's not enough.
Yeah.
So we're just going to exact a punishment from them. But most of the brothers agreed.
And then she wanted to marry him.
Right.
So that's the same idea.
Right. That he's willing to kill for me. Okay. Then afterwards she marries Shimon, and she has a daughter. Her daughter is Osnat, apparently. And again, it's like this. You have to understand that that part of the infatuation that you have with someone who's different is because they're willing to sacrifice who they are to be with you. That's why it's very hard to stop intermarriage. Because in intermarriage, especially if the other side is willing to really make changes, then it's very hard to, especially, but both for men and women, but especially for women, it's very hard to give up that type of passion. That someone wants me that much. But anyway, this comes from netzach, this type of determination that I want this anyway, regardless of what it does to my mind and my heart, even if it's against my mind and my heart now, I want it. That's what netzach is. So it's a very good, it's very much connected to the parsha. And again, these words don't show up anywhere else in the Torah, as far as I remember. Chashika and chafitza. Look, you'll see it when you read the psukim. There's 3 words, ahava, chashika, v'chafitza. All the time to describe our connection with Hashem. Okay. וההפרש בזה הוא כי בבחינת החסד יש בו התלבשות תענוג העליון ממקור התענוגים נקרא עתיק יומין. ולכך הוא נקרא עדיין מכלל גופא דמלכה. So the distinction here is that with the attribute of chesed, of loving kindness, there is still a manifestation of the supreme pleasure. The supreme pleasure, we said, comes from the source of all pleasure referred to as Atik Yomin, the Ancient of Days. It's coming from the Keter. Pleasure comes from the Keter. So in the chesed, there's still pleasure. There's still a feeling of pleasure. But in the lower third, in the netzach od yesod, there is no more pleasure. That's why when you perform mitzvot out of Kabbalah's ol, we call it, out of carrying a burden, as it were, so there's no pleasure in it. And it's actually considered to be better. Why is it considered to be better? Because then I know that you're following Hashem. You're not looking for your betterment. Again, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have any pleasure, but the pleasure is different. It's pleasure of having done what Hashem told me to do. It's not my own pleasure. And here, usually, the pleasure is that I get pleasure from this, that I'm connected to this, that I want, in my mind, I'm motivated to do something, and in my heart, I feel connected to it. So that's pleasure, because I'm fulfilling my satisfaction. Now, this is a big deal, this satisfaction part. Probably one of the most problematic words we've talked about it.
What we're really saying is when we daven and we really don't feel like it, and we're not.
It's much better.
Very great thing. So we should feel good.
Yeah, I mean, right. So what's the goodness? The goodness is that I performed the mitzvah,
That's right.
and it's called simcha shel mitzvah. Yes. It's the simcha that the person gets from the mitzvah, not from having fulfilled his desire.
Yes.
Not from having,
It's a
and it's a big mistake that people make because they hear simcha shel mitzvah, and they understand that Simcha Shem Mitzvah is that a person should be innately happy in the mitzvah. But it's not the innate happiness. Right.
Simcha has a little different now connotation to me.
Can. It means that the joy comes from having fulfilled Hashem's word. It's completely different. What?
The brisk guys.
Can. It's very Russian.
Yes, it's a very brisker,
It's very Russian.
Yeah.
Like this is the
pleasure. Yes.
That's why I said that when you get to netzach, it's a big deal. That is where the real joy. And so how do you see it? So he says that in netzach, it's like a lot of people said, how do I know where I need to go? Wherever my feet take me. Not where my brain takes me. Where my brain or my heart takes me is because I'm interested in it. But if my feet are willing to take me there, so that's already something worth noting. That's something that's valuable. And we talked about dancing on Simchas Torah, which is like a form of avoda. Okay. For this reason, Chesed is still considered part of the body of the king. Chesed, because it still has the pleasure, it's still the body of the king. So when we're looking at it from a positive side, it means now we'll take like that it really is that the person is doing things because of godly motivation and he has feelings. So the body is not a sign that he's really serving Hashem yet, because there's so much pleasure there that it's not clear. But if it comes down to action, that's already a sign that because in the action there's no pleasure in the action itself. And again, we're talking about the legs, netzach and hod, but it could be the hands also. There's no simple pleasure there. In contrast, the aspect of netzach operates when the revelation of delight is not enough to inspire the flow of kindness. Instead, the flow is driven purely by determination, akin to the concept expressed in the Talmudic statement, "Be silent, so it arose in my thought." This we'll have to see to next week what he means. So Shabbat Shalom, Shabbos.